Welcome to Franchise Canada Chats, the podcast that takes you inside the world of Canadian franchising. I'm Renée Boudakian, founder and CEO of Rubicon Franchise Partners, and your host for Season 9. This season, we're going beyond the business model to uncover the real stories of franchise owners, the risks they took, the lessons they learned, and the successes they built. Join us as we sit down with franchisees, their franchisors, and industry experts to discuss emerging trends, cutting-edge technologies, and operational strategies shaping the future of franchising. Whether you're thinking about buying your first or next franchise, this podcast is your inside track to franchise success in Canada. On this episode, we're joined by Sean Bannerman, an Ontario-based Oxygen Yoga and Fitness master franchisee. Sean and his wife, Sherry, are both master franchisees with Oxygen Yoga and Fitness for a large region in Ontario, but he didn't start his career in the yoga world. Sean served his community through a career in law enforcement until 2018, when he made the transition into business ownership. He and his wife became master franchisees in 2019 and have been helping grow the Oxygen Yoga and Fitness brand ever since. In our conversation today, we're going to stretch out, release that tension, and hear all about how Sean found franchising in the yoga and fitness industry to be the perfect fit. Sean, welcome to the Franchise Canada Chats.
Thank you, Renee. Happy to be here.
So I'd love to, we mentioned your career in community through your career in law enforcement and serving your community. I would love for you to tell us a little bit about your background and life in law enforcement before franchising.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So working for the police was kind of that childhood dream. You're a little kid and, you want to kind of, be the hero and put away the bad guys and do all that. So, yeah, no, it was a career in law enforcement. It started in corrections with Corrections Ontario. And then from there, I moved on to the OPP. And I was with the OPP for a little over 17 years, a total of my 23-year career. No, it was a great experience. My formal education was in social work. So it was kind of paired my people skills and my dream of law enforcement. So it was kind of worked well for me. And the whole 23 years, what it kind of did was it took a little bit of a toll as far as kind of personal health and well-being. And I actually had injured my back when I was on the job. And a really good friend of mine who's a strength and conditioning coach had recommended yoga to me. And that's when I started. And that would have been back in 2015. And I actually went to another facility, not Oxygen, because they weren't in the province yet. And that's where I kind of fell in love with the concept of yoga and becoming a yogi and a practicing yogi.
I love it. And one of the things we were chatting about just before we hit play was you had found Oxygen Yoga and Fitness and really later. What age were you when you found the business?
It was 2018, so I would have been 37. No,
okay.
47. 47. No, 37. I'm dating myself. So, yeah. So, no, it was I would have been in my mid 40s. So, it was, it really started with Oxygen. Me and my wife, we actually, because she's a nurse, or she was a nurse, she's a non-practicing now. We were looking for something different, and we actually had a weekend off, which never happened. And we actually had the franchise show was coming up in Toronto. And we took the weekend off and made it part of our plans, and we went to the franchise show. And we did a little bit of homework prior to that, and to see like what vendors are going to be there, what franchises, because it's a massive show and we couldn't see everybody, but we wanted to kind of scale it down to like the top 10 or 15 that we were looking at. And Oxygen sparked my interest because of my being a practicing yogi and knowing the benefits of it. So Oxygen was at our top of our list. And when we went, we met the representatives of the brand at the time and really connected with them. Learned a little bit more, walked away from the show going, this could be a possibility. And then did, was kind of sat on the information for a little bit, did some more research, went online. I'm actually a UBC grad.
Mm-hmm.
So I had friends of mine that lived in Vancouver still, and I called them and it's like, have you heard of this brand? And, what's the reputation? And everybody I talked to had glowing things to say, like my wife goes or my daughter goes, and they're kind of in every town, and they're really a household name at West. And so that gave me a little bit of peace of mind that, it was an up and coming company and a really good brand. And from there, I took the information to my father, who was an electrical engineer and has had his own business and very successful business for a long time. And I kind of took the business model to him and asked him to just look at the business model, forget the product, because engineering and yoga are kind of diametrically opposite kind of business models. But his basic overview was, if this business model is true, it's a good opportunity. And
Sure.
I kind of took his kind of years of experience in business as kind of a go ahead, and from there we pulled the trigger. So from the time I found out about Oxygen to the time I committed to Oxygen was about 3 months, and that would have been in early 2018. And we opened in late 2018. So 9 months later, we opened our first studio in North Oshawa.
I love it. And would you say that you were, based on what was going on in your world, yours and Sherry's world, you mentioned your profession was high stress. I can only imagine her profession was also high stress as well. Would you say you were actively looking for a business? Went to the Franchise
Yeah.
Canada show. What was that kind of like seed in your mind that you knew what you were doing was not what you wanted to continue to do? You wanted to make a
Well,
change.
we were looking at quality of life too. Um, we had both been shift workers for a number of years. At the time, I was into my 20th plus year of law enforcement, so it took a toll physically, mentally. Like for a day shift, I was getting up at 3:30 in the morning and getting home at 7:30 at night,
Got
and
it.
doing right. And so we actually had built or we're in the process of building a retirement home for us in Napanee. And my wife kind of went, there's a business opportunity here, because we were really situated between Belleville and Kingston, but there was kind of a lack of services in some fields. So it was Sherry that kind of said, there's an opportunity for us to do something else, either in one of these markets. And that's what kind of sparked the initial interest of going to the franchise show. Right.
Got it.
But we were both looking for something different, because we were both at a point where we were kind of not at the burned out point, but we were starting to really take a look at our own personal health and going, what's the toll going to be if we stay another 12, another 15 years in our career fields.
Sure. And what made you kind of explore franchising as that next step versus maybe considering starting something from scratch? If you were, already knowing that you were considering how it was your career was impacting, your physical health, your mental health, but what made you kind of draw towards franchising as opposed to considering starting something on your own?
The one thing that I always found about kind of the franchise model and what kind of attracted us to it was there's already kind of a tried and tested formula, right? So there's services that are built into franchising that um, you just get more support on all of the things that you need to start a business. And as I kind of evolved into that master franchisee role, it those became really abundantly clear, right, for my new franchisees, but also for us. Like when we started the business, they had a real estate team. The real estate team helped negotiate our property on our behalf and negotiate the lease. So I already had one expert in there. we have a marketing team, we have an advertising team, we have a legal team. So all of those things that I had to kind of consider for the same business, if I wanted to open Sean's Yoga, I would have to outsource all of those experts in their field. And in the franchise model, that's it's done for you.
Love it. Love it. And that's, I mean, we hear it. I'm sure you've said it, but franchising, you're in business for yourself, but you're not by yourself. And that's
So
such a powerful thing that you just touched on is that the model itself has those experts and that support infrastructure that as an entrepreneur, like you need those things anyways in the business. And sure, if you have an idea that's novel and new and never before been done, then perhaps business ownership independently is a pathway. But it sounds like you weighed out those you weighed out your decision very carefully. And you also mentioned master franchisee. But what I want to touch on, because maybe some of the listeners who are newer to franchising might not know what that means. What is a master franchisee and how does it differ from a traditional franchisee?
so not every business has a master franchisee level. So what a master franchisee is, they represent the master franchisee, or kind of in layman's terms, the parent company, the head company, right? They represent them in a jurisdiction, right? So my territory in Durham, or like I have two territories. I have South Central Ontario and Durham. So basically, my territory goes from Grimsby to Kingston, except for Toronto proper. So everything in between falls under one of my two territories. So I represent the brand and sell the brand within that and develop the studios. So, but my role is essentially I'm the boots on the ground regionally, but I represent corporate.
Okay, got it. And did you start as a master franchisee, Sean, or did you start as a studio owner? Like, tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming a master franchisee.
Oh no, absolutely. No. So our first endeavor was to be a single studio, right? So Sherry's goal was, we lived like we still had a house in Durham, so the idea was that we'd open, two or three studios in Durham. That was the original plan, right? So, and then so we opened the North Oshawa store, our studio, and a few months later, we were kind of considering our next options because the first studio was doing well, and an opportunity came around to become a master franchisee, which was to buy a bigger territory and help build the brand that way. And so it was a bit of an evolution and trying to navigate that next level. But once we kind of jumped into that level, we've never kind of looked back. Like it was strange because I wore both hats, like as a master franchisee and as a franchisee, just a sub franchisee. Um, but as my job as a master franchisee is, I'll take an area. So for people in the GTA, York region is one of my territories as part of South Central, and so York could probably hold 7 to 8 studios. So right now we have 4 of the 8 that are open. But my job is to support those 4 studios and help them day to day in their operations and their questions, and from operations to construction, kind of be that first level of questions, whatever it is. And then, but it's also to develop the next 4 franchisees that are going to go in and to be Studio 5 through 8.
Got it. So it's like a middle between the local owner and the corporate
Head
office.
offices.
You're
Yeah,
kind of that middle piece that helps to develop in those local markets the franchisees. And it's so I'm sure it's helpful that you already were in that seat for a long time.
absolutely. Yeah, and because we can share those pains, like we understand the finding a property, the process of applying for the bank loan, right?
Sure.
The construction process, the opening process, the how to deal with new staff issues. So like hiring processes, how to market in a new area, right? So all of those kind of speed bumps, as being one of the original franchisees, we've kind of hit those speed bumps, so we can pass that expertise on, so they don't have the same growing pains as we did.
I love that. One of the things that I'm a big believer in is that when it comes to figuring out what career is for you, I think that oftentimes a lot of folks will either think about going and being employed by someone else or starting their own business. And I really truly believe that more people should think about this third pathway and actively either accept or negate it. Franchising is not for everybody, as I'm sure you would agree. But I think if you go back to the beginning of the journey and you think about what made you say yes to oxygen yoga and fitness, um, what was it that specifically about the business model? You mentioned kind of like having advice from your father, who is also an entrepreneur, but what was it about this business model that really had you say yes to becoming an entrepreneur through franchising?
Well, I think we touched on it a little bit, but it was also kind of those built-in supports, right? It was the ability to, you know, have an established brand, have an established model, right? That you could go into, and there's somebody, there's supports built in, right? Um, the franchise model for me, it kind of made sense because I wasn't looking for us, we were looking for an opportunity that we could be passionate about, that we could be totally invested in. Because of my experience with yoga, I could speak to the physical effects because I was a consumer of the product, right? So I could very much talk to it about, my journey, my experience. This is why yoga was beneficial to me. So, it wasn't, I wasn't trying to sell tires because they were, everybody needs tires. I'm sure that's a wonderful business model for that, but I have zero passion for tires, right?
Sure.
Like, right. But for us, this was something that resonated with us. And for my wife, she was working in a unit in her nursing career where everything was kind of end of life. She was in a stroke recovery nurse, and so she saw people with deficit. And so for her, it was more, she wanted something more preventable health, right? So,
Sure.
and the things that we could offer in this franchise and specifically within this brand was that preemptive health, right? Anybody can jump into oxygen, they can, reform their health and be sustainable, right? So, we have, our youngest members are 16. We have members that well into their 70s, but everybody can do it. And
Love
so
it.
that's what kind of why it resonated with us. But from a business aspect, again, it was because it had already a formula to follow, and we were very firm believers. Like, our own personalities were rule followers. Like in nursing, you have strict rules that you have to do. In policing, you have strict rules you have to follow. So in a franchise model, there's rules to follow. It's a process, and you kind of go through those tried processes that have already kind of been worked out for you.
You touched on something really cool, Sean, which was that transition from consumership to ownership and like kind of that journey on that. What so there for some of the listeners, they might have a brand that they are consumers of and they might love, and they might think that this might be a great um, brand that they could be part of the franchise system. What are your thoughts on like some important pieces to consider when you're going from becoming a customer of the brand to becoming a business owner of the brand?
I think they have to evaluate their time, right? Everybody says, time passes so fast, and time so this, and we have so little time. And it's really, what do you want to give your time to? I've So as a master franchisee, part of my job is I get people every day that call me saying, "I'm interested in a studio. I want to learn about this. Can you tell me more?" And my line to everybody, and it's a truism that I totally believe in, is nobody's going to love your business as much as you love your business, right? So when people are asking me, like, how much time do I have to put in, or I have a young family, or I have to do this, I'm very honest with them, and I just say, you have to. be present. My most successful studios have the most invested owners, right? Because they're there. Like in some of the like, it's not a hard and fast rule. Like there are exceptions, but the majority of the truly successful studios have the most invested owners with their time. And investing in a franchise is just not financial investment. It has to be time, right? You have to be the face, be part of that brand, so people resonate with your story, right?
Definitely.
Because you're selling this is a franchise, but they're locally owned. It's not a big conglomerate, right? Like in the franchise model, yes, there's huge companies in franchising, but they're, at the end of the day, they're locally owned.
Yeah,
And it's
absolutely. And you touched on that. And do you find when you're just from your own experience, do you find that the community knows that is there a misconception that these are kind of these big companies that are all owned by one, or do they know that they are locally owned?
um I think yes and no. I think it's kind of, I think people look at some of the major brands like Tim Hortons, for example. Like everybody kind of, that's the kind of the franchise kind of gold standard. Like I'd love to own a Tim's, but everybody kind of gets scared by the price and
And availability, if the
and
which there is
availability.
none.
Exactly. But I think if like I do a lot of CFA events and different things. And one of the things I learned, it was a store I used all the time, and I had no idea it was a franchise. Is the UPS store. I was like,
Mhm.
I had no idea. I thought, UPS. I just thought it was a big brand. And then they were out one of the events, and I'm like, oh, I didn't realize they were a franchise, right? Like, and I work in franchising, so I think there is a misconception, but I think part of the marketing has to be in your brand that these are locally owned. Yeah, yes, we're a national brand, but we're locally owned, and each studio is owned by a family.
Definitely, definitely. I love that. And so kind of continuing on your journey and your path, yours and Sherry's path, one of the things that you mentioned, which I just want to touch on quickly, is the idea of starting a new venture when you were on a path to potentially retire in a couple of years. And so in the early days when you became a franchise owner, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced kind of going from a career that you had been in for, almost 2 decades to starting something completely new?
My biggest challenge in starting our brand was brand recognition in a new marketplace, right?
Because you were the
We the
first.
first in Ontario. Yeah. So we had to do a lot of education, but I also think that was a blessing because it made me put myself out there. I went everywhere and talked to everybody about it. My wife, if she was on, she would say he was a little bit shameless. Like, I'll talk to anybody about this, right? But I went to all the trade shows. I went to all the festivals, and I was anywhere there was a community outreach element. I would be there, and Oxygen has sponsored a lot of local events in our marketplace. We made ourselves present, we made ourselves known, right? So that challenge initially was, well, what is it, and why is it different? And the growth of our business is 99% of our new franchisees are consumers. They were members at a studio, and they had left and said, "Oh, I would love to do this here," or "Where's the next opportunity? Because this would do great here." And that's really been the kind of the organic growth of our brand in Ontario. Like since we started in uh, 2018, we went from, like, at the time of COVID when we shut down, there was 7 stores in Ontario, and then we had a 2-year pause with COVID, and today, like, our total count is 48 studios across Ontario. We have 30 currently open and another 18 in development.
Love that. How
Right.
would you say some of the support systems or tools provided to you by the franchisor um, had helped you stay on track during some of the tough moments, like you mentioned, the years we shall not speak of, but
Yeah, no, but no, 100%. No, because they have uh, members of their corporate team, like the master franchisors team, that if it's an advertising question, or if it's a marketing question, or if it's um, sales and promotions, or tech support, there are there are supports, and we had to pivot during COVID. So I would say, like, and we were a new studio, relatively new, like we were only about 15 months old when we closed for COVID. Um, so we had to pivot to online. So that was a huge undertaking, right? And but
Sure.
we had corporate support for our online concept, and what we were going to make available nationally and locally. Um, it, you know, it's it's strange because in the beginning we were very dependent on them, and we still are to a large degree. But we've also had collaboration too. So as we've grown in our role as a master, now we contribute more ideas uh, to the brand, and so kind of what we see in our marketplace, and so that are some of the things that we were doing locally now have become integrated with what they do nationally,
I
right?
love that. And we've seen that. I mean, I would say probably maybe one of the most commonly known things is in the McDonald's franchise system, but a lot of the innovations like their Big Mac came from or the Filet-O-Fish came from innovation. So that's amazing to hear that that is a truth across other systems as well, and things that you have figured out and worked on locally are now being done at the national level. So everybody benefits. Um, I think it's powerful that the franchise system really helps franchise owners thrive and survive in hard times, but also in great times as well, and
Yeah,
helps them to shorten learnings and shortcut learnings that might take years and collapse. What might take someone decades to learn, and then they come into the system and they get that.
yeah.
So
Like,
that's great.
like just kind of like an antidote. It won't, like when we first started, uh, we would have uh, like a new studio opening, and all the new people would come, and my wife used to text them, every one of them, individually. And so there would be a couple hundred texts a day to over that course of that opening. Well, we've automated and really changed the text, so it's still personalized, but the system that we can put that's out in now, what took
Sure.
her days to do, we're doing it in a half an hour.
Yeah, you're
Right.
scaling
Right.
your relationships because there's only so much of your time, so you're being more strategic with your time, still giving that
Yeah.
one-on-one attention and support, but done in a way that allows you to scale it to the
Yeah.
masses.
But that also makes, so what we kind of figured out how to do that, when we now we can pass that on to the next studio. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're saving them man hours in the beginning so they can concentrate on the customer relations instead of the man hours of fit typing. Right. So if you walked into the store, I can have that time to do the tour and to tell you about the studio and all the benefits, as opposed to having either somebody else doing that and then paying for somebody to do the texting and all that. So we've really kind of streamlined that to be more efficient, but also so we can be more present in the studio to the client experience.
I love that. So fast forward, because your role has changed from going from a studio owner of one to, I
Right.
believe, did you have three
Yeah.
locations?
So yeah, in 2020, so during the pandemic, we had three studios that I personally owned.
And
Right.
then and you now, since transitioning to becoming a master franchisee, you don't own those studios anymore.
No, no. I sold them all starting in 2022, one in 23 and one in 24. Right.
Okay,
And it was just not because of like the studio, it was just more demands on my time on the master side. And
sure.
I kind of felt like I wasn't doing my studio quite enough justice because I was torn in so many other directions that I could give my full attention to the studio, and the studio deserved more attention
Absolutely.
than I could give. Right.
What advice, or what I guess maybe are your thoughts on someone who is coming into your business and purchasing it, so a resale, versus someone who is looking to create a new studio? What kind of pros and cons are there to resales versus new locations?
A resale is a little bit of a different animal because you're absorbing that staff. You're absorbing their client base. You're absorbing the good, the bad, the ugly of the studio,
Sure.
right? But the other side of that is you're not going through construction. You're not going through permits. You're not going through. So there are advantages. I kind of joke with the people, our franchisees that have done a resale, is it's kind of like jumping onto a moving train, right? You've got to be ready, and you got to be ready to jump and enjoy the ride. Um, a new build is very methodical because we're finding the property, we're negotiating the lease, where sometimes it's a brand new building and we're designing a concept off of a concept without actually physically seeing the building, right? So my Kitchener studio was a brand new build, so it took us a year to get the building built, right? So
Got it.
that was a little bit different, right, for a process for them. Um, I think it depends on the individual. I think
Hmm.
um, so. Every one of my resales has actually been a member of my studio, so they knew it, they loved it, they were already part of the community. And for us, it was an easy transition because we already knew they were invested in the product and in that studio. With a franchisee that's looking to start brand new, um, it's because they see that they want to do this in an area that is a little closer to home, or that they feel like their community could use it. Right,
Sure.
like this is missing in their community. So I think a resale, typically the transaction, and you could be in business faster, right? So because a resale process is just naturally shorter. But like for us, for total concept for a new studio, like if Renee, if you wanted to do a studio and you said, Sean, we're going to start today, I'd be probably the earliest I'd be looking is like January of 26 to open you, right,
Okay.
as a studio. So people kind of prepare for that. So I kind of call it the roller coaster. It's
Sure.
very slow, very, very methodical, and then you're going to get to construction. And once I start construction, you're about 12 weeks from opening, and it feels like you've climbed that roller coaster. Now the brakes are off, and now it's a free for all because you're like rushing. You're like, everything's going to happen in the next 12 weeks, and I'm going to be
Right.
open.
Right, right, right. It's I love the way that you kind of like contrasted those because both opportunities exist, but all of them through the franchising vehicle. So that's wonderful. I'd love to touch on kind of life now. And so we've
Sure.
talked a little bit about before, we've talked about the transition to into franchising with Oxygen. I'd love to know, what does life look like now compared to before, when you were high-fiving Sherry in the
Yeah.
driveway, kind of two trains passing in the
Yeah.
night.
No, well, so Sherry would say she went from never seeing me to spending 24 hours a day with me. So I always say she's never been happier, but I don't know if that's necessarily true. No, we get to travel, and we get to travel together, which is kind of a crazy, weird thing. Like right now, at the time that we're doing this, I'm down in Rochester, and we're helping one of our international studios get open. Right. Actually, today was their first day. A couple of weeks ago, I
That's
was in
amazing.
Iowa, right, helping them. Earlier this year, we did two studios in Quebec. So I was up in Quebec and helping them open there. I get home for a couple of weeks, and then I'm off to Charlottetown. We're going to be in Charlottetown for 2 weeks to open up our first studio in Prince Edward Island. So we get to travel and spend time together, but we have very distinct roles with it within our company, but we work very much hand in hand because I couldn't have done this without her, and she could. She said she couldn't do it without me, but I think she's being generous. But it's no, it's 100% changed our lives. Like we work from home, so I used to have a 3-hour commute every day to downtown Toronto and sit on the Don Valley for hours, and now my commute most days is to my living room. And,
Love it.
right,
So
and
you're sharing that franchising really can create that lifestyle flexibility. What about you mentioned kind of the mental health and the stress previously. How would you say that differs or compares to what life is like now?
um, No, there's still stress, but it's way different. My when I was doing my policing and that it was mentally fatigue, right? Like
Hmm.
it was quality of life. It was there's high demands on you. There's a hierarchy within both of our systems, and our like we both loved our careers, but we were part of a bigger mechanism. And like the day we retired, they replaced us, right? So it was it's kind of a big machine, and we were just a small part of that. But here in this, it's like yes, there's stressors, yeah, there's problems, there's day to day stuff happens. Um, One of our studios owners house was hit by that tornado that went through Barrie a few years ago, and like luckily the studio was fine, but she had suffered major losses with her home, and so as one of our franchisees, of course, we have to, what can we do? How can we support? How can we, and there's always going to be an issue, but we kind of look at it as, at the end of the day, we're here, we're helping people, but it's a different stress, right? But
Yeah.
it's,
And I
um,
appreciate the honesty because as we know, like all business, being in business and business ownership comes with stresses. But um, one of the things you shared, which is, uh, I think if what I heard is like that sense of purpose and really that meaningful, um, like you're a meaningful piece of that big,
yeah,
machine, so to
yeah.
speak.
No, we absolutely we want like we tell all our franchisees like it, we don't kind of just abandon you once you're open. Like
Sure.
uh, my wife is more on the operation side, but they do like we always have like an open door policy. You can call us anytime, and we'll help you because sometimes the problems are in real time, and we'll absolutely walk you through them. But we do monthly diagnostics with each of the franchisees, so we can look at trends in their studio, so we can address the good and the bad, both right in real time. So 6 months from now, we're not going, I don't know why you had a bad quarter, right, or a bad
Sure.
half a year, right? So, but or why, like we always look at it kind of year over year projections and how you're doing, and we work with them on their marketing as we're coming up to different events and different marketing campaigns. So we're very very integrated into it, and it allows us to kind of feel like yeah, like we're very proud of our franchisees, and so we take a small piece of that ownership, right? Like we want them to do well, and we want to be part of their success and part of their supports, because a lot of what we do is kind of that word of mouth, and people come out of them, and we're uh, like a lot of the studios, all the studio uh, other franchisees, they're like a little community among themselves because they're all studio owners. So they have those supports with each other, then they have the supports with us, and so we try to build that kind of family almost. Like we kind of jokingly call like the studios our grandkids. Like
Sure.
we want to see them do well, and you know
Yes.
and support them and make sure they're on the right track and do all the right things. But at the end of the day, each franchise is their own business, but we want to make sure that we're there to support them.
What would you say? So when you talk about your grandkids, your studio owners, what kind of person would you say thrives in your franchise system? Because that's all really you can speak to.
In our system, I think it's the person that it is attention detailed. I think
Hmm.
the processes, there's a lot of systems in there. Like we have very, not complicated, but very structured processes for sales and follow up sales, and how to target new clients and how to have retention for your clients. So if you follow a lot of those processes, then it will translate to success. If so, the person that is worried about the details and is understands function and kind of those cause and effects, like uh, it's still a business. And this is one of the things that we always say, like um, as being a consumer of it doesn't necessarily always translate. Like yes, they love the brand and all that, but they have to love the business of it,
Hmm.
right? Because if you don't follow a process, then it's harder to play catch up to what you should have been doing last week if you're trying to do it 2 weeks later, right?
Sure.
Right. So
Um,
everything has a kind of a function in our business, right? Like like every visit has a meaning to us. Like if you've come 5 times in a trial and I don't talk to you after your fifth time, then I'm missing something, saying, well, you know, she obviously loved the product, so, and nobody talked to her about a sale. Well, we've missed an opportunity to keep you.
Sure. What I'm hearing is that your customer journey is very, because we know that the customer is having an experience, whether it's been designed
Yeah.
carefully or not. And I'm hearing that at Oxygen Yoga and Fitness, that your customer journey is designed very well and methodically.
We, we, we always say we have one chance to make a first impression. And
Mm-hmm.
so that impression starts with the greeting at the front door, your experience in the studio, your experience leaving the studio, and how we communicate with you in between your visits, right? And to make sure that you're getting the most out of your trial or your membership or your time at Oxygen. So we want to make sure that you know being client facing, because we're a client based business, we want to make sure that everybody's experience is optimal, and if there's an issue, then we also want to be able to address those issues. But if I don't reach out to any of my customers, I don't know what the problems are or what the good is either.
Sure. Sure. That absolutely makes sense. I love that. And I think what you've touched on is really franchising is for those who are committed and who are coachable and who want to scale with structure in place. For those who are uh, exploring franchising, what are some questions that you think a prospective franchisee should either be asking within themselves, doing some self exploration, or asking externally to the franchisor? Share with us like some good nuggets of questions or lines of
Yeah.
questions they should be asking.
Well, so the question I always get is return on investment, because everybody
Mm-hmm.
looks at a franchise as it's going to cost me X to start. When can I get my money back? Right. So I always look at it like, and there's a number for our business, like every other business, but I also look at it from, it's what are you investing? Are you investing? Is it just financial, right? Are you investing your time? Are you investing, like, what's your growth? Like, if you want to open a business because it's a popular brand and you're not going to be there, well, it's not going to make you the profit you think it's going to make. So it's kind of integrated. But for franchisees, I want them to, like, if it was a brand new franchisee, I'd want them to ask me about, you know, real estate and how does that work and how do you negotiate a lease and who's going to do this, and if I went down here, what's the supports and what's this like. I want a prospective franchisee to ask me the tough, real questions so I could give them real answers. Because if they just go, how much is it and when can I open, then I don't. It kind of leaves me feeling like I don't know if they're really truly invested in the details of the process,
Sure. That makes
right?
sense.
But I want franchisees to ask me questions at all stages. Like I just want them to kind of. But you asked about the self-evaluation. We actually send out a document to our franchisees, and it's their homework. What's your strengths? What's your weakness? Who's your competition? Right? Like,
Nice. You have them do a SWOT on themselves.
yeah, yeah. Like, like me and Sherry came from non-traditional roles. So when we filled out the document, our strengths were we had to be social, and we were people persons, and we de-escalated, and because of that, and because we were good communicators. So those were our strengths. Like, our weakness was we weren't business people, but we were very teachable, right? Because we worked in systems, right? So I don't think there's one question that I go, oh, I need to hear this, but I want them to ask me the right questions or a volume of questions. Because if they ask me two, then I kind of wonder about how legitimate or how much are they actually listening. Like,
Sure.
because if all they want to know is I'm going to make my money back in 5 years or 3 years or 2 years, and and how much is it going to cost me to get there? Well, they haven't talked about size, scale, how you get there, how you grow a business, what a year one studio does, what a year two, year three, what's the growth year over year, right? Like, how do you build a business, not how do you cash a check?
I love it. Sean, I have one more question for
Sure.
you, which is in what is one truth about franchising that's taken you some years to learn that you would share with the listeners?
Oh, one truth. Um, the one truth that I've learned is franchising is underestimated by the majority of people looking for a career. I believe that our schooling systems at the high school level, at the university level, do need more help in talking about what franchising is and the opportunities that it provides. I think people are very surprised when they hear the the amount of money that you know. I this statement bothers me, but it's kind of funny because like when I work on a designer or with construction, or when we do this, like I have franchisees going, well, it's just a yoga studio. Why would it cost $400,000 or $500,000 to build? Because we're building a boutique, beautiful studio. Like, and it's for me. I think there needs to be more education on the opportunity of what franchising is. Like when every kid my age, we'd have a meeting with our high school counselor, and they gave us, you go into business, create the next widget, or go into public service. It was basically the three options that they gave us. And if you're going to go into business, get your MBA and get a job with IBM or a Fortune 500 company. They didn't say, franchise and own 10 stores.
Absolutely. I love
Yeah.
that. I think that's such a high note to end on. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to chat, hear your story, and have you share it with the listeners. So I just wanted to thank you so much, Sean, for joining us on the Franchise Canada Chats podcast. And I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you, Renee. It was a real pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Franchise Canada Chats. I'm Renée Boudakian with Rubicon Franchise Partners, and this podcast is produced by Joelle Kidd with the Canadian Franchise Association. Missed an episode? You can find Franchise Canada Chats on Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your podcasts. For expert insights, success stories, and franchise opportunities, visit franchisecanada.online. And while you're there, subscribe to Franchise Canada e-News, a trusted resource for aspiring franchisees looking to achieve their dreams and build their franchise future. If you're exploring franchise ownership, check out lookforafranchise.ca or learn more about franchising at cfa.ca. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time.